This video will discover 9 reasons why you should try shooting with a 21mm lens, featuring the Leica Elmarit 21 f2.8 spherical. Hello, welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So all the photos you're going to see in this video are shot with the Leica Elmarit-M 21 2.8 lens on a Leica M240 unless stated otherwise. I'll share 9 reasons why you may want to shoot with an ultra-wide lens, the lens spec, and a story about pigeons. If you've never shot with an ultra-wide lens before, this video is definitely for you. Here you can see my setup. So number 1, subframing. The thing I like the most about shooting with a wide lens is seeing so many pictures inside pictures. And so in this example, as you can see, I was framing the church structure in the background by using the arches in the foreground. And just by moving your angle very slightly, it can totally transform the picture. Here's another example where I was using foliage to frame the spire in the distance, the bike in the archway, as you can see there, the girl in the archway. And yeah, there's endless examples of framing options when you use a wide angle lens. When your eyes start seeing wider, it's then quite difficult to go back to a tighter, longer focal length. Now, if you've never used a Leica M camera before, there's no 21mm frame line in the viewfinder, so I was using a 21 to 25mm external viewfinder. The problem I had was it was so loose on the hot shoe or accessory shoe, it kept sliding off. If you've ever seen the price of these Voigtlander viewfinders, they're not cheap, whether it's Voigtlander or Leica, so I wanted to make sure I didn't lose it while walking around Krakow in Poland. So my quick hack was just use a bit of tissue paper that I had in my pocket. That made it kind of tight enough so then it wouldn't fall off. I would recommend, if you shoot film, just use a film tab end. It's a much neater design, but this is my quick hack that I did for when I was walking around, because as I say, I didn't want to lose it, and I wanted to use the external viewfinder because, as I say, you can't use the built-in viewfinder. Okay, number 2, layering. Another thing I love about wide-angle lenses is you can get a lot more depth in your photos. So as you can see from that video clip, I just backed up, and that gave me the foreground of the little lamp, and then the people in the middle, and then obviously the building in the background. Here are more examples. I think foliage and long grass especially give a really nice leading line in. And even with flower photos, rather than being a flower macro, it shows you the flower in their environment. Next, reflections. Wide angle lenses are really good for reflections because if you get really close to like a water source or anything reflective, you can get really clear, high quality reflections. So definitely try doing that next time you play with a wide angle lens. On a similar theme, try going for a low point of view or low angle, because you can get really dramatic looking images. With it being such a wide lens, you can get really close to the floor. The only thing I'd say is you probably benefit from a camera with a flip out screen. My top tip for M camera users would be maybe use a VisoFlex on the top and then use that right angle finder, meaning you can have the camera flat down on the floor and still look down on the camera like you would with, say, a waist level viewfinder. Now onto pigeons. Now, because I was looking at low angle shots, I was trying to get the pigeons to fly off to give me some foreground. But as you can see, I kept walking through the pigeons and they were so used to tourists, they just wouldn't take off. I was like, why won't you take off? And so I kind of gave up for a second, and then next minute, all the pigeons suddenly took to the sky and I managed to get these photos. And I couldn't quite work out why they'd suddenly taken off, because I'd tried to walk through them many times and nothing was really happening. You can see how dramatic the photo looks with all the pigeons in the sky. As I was walking away, I found the culprit of why the pigeons had taken off, and a guy was flying a drone and that had scared the pigeons, and so they couldn't land, so they're all in the air. So next time, take your drone if you want pigeons to take off. Okay, next, wide angle lenses give you a really good point and shoot option because pretty much everything is in focus once you stop the lens down. To give you some examples, if you shoot the lens at 5.6, everything from 1.2 meters is in focus. If you shoot at f8, everything from 0.8 meters is in focus. And at f11, 0.7 meters to infinity is in focus. That's quite lucky because I actually knocked the lens to 0.7 meters for some close-up shots and then forgot to change it. But luckily, because of the extra depth and our shooting stopped down, most things still look in focus. Ultra-wide lenses are also amazing for shooting from the hip because you've got such a wide view, you can't really miss. These nuns are walking towards me, so I was trying to fire off a few snaps and get the spy on the right-hand side. Not perfect, but definitely something to play with, shooting from the hip, stop down. Seeing those crazy angles, that leads me onto angles. So normally how my eyes see the world, I try to have like flat horizon lines and straight verticals. but with a wide angle lens you can really start to play around with it a bit more. So here's an example with the flattish horizon, and here's the same photo on a wonk. I actually prefer the flat horizon, but I was trying different angles like this to get two spies in the same composition. Next, tight spaces. So it sounds obvious, but a wide angle lens is amazing for tight spaces. That could be indoors or somewhere like here where you've got so much detail in like a corridor and you want to get both the indoor structure and the outdoor all in the same shot. And it gives you really nice kind of like two rooms in one photo kind of feeling. And then again, just by changing your angle very slightly, you can completely transform your compositions. And yeah, I found that really rewarding. So this is why I use 21mm lenses for weddings, because for interiors and I want to get all the people in the shot, 21mm lenses are fantastic. Okay, street photography. Now with street photography and a wide angle lens, yes, it's easy because everything's in focus and everything's in your frame. The problem is you've got to get much closer to anything to have any impact in your photo. So as you can see with all these photos shot from the hip, nothing was close enough to have any impact apart from that lady that happened to walk right past me. So I think the key is get as close as possible to your people. I'd say at least 1 meter so they have some impact in your final picture. Now while I was walking around in Poland, it was actually a really sunny day, so I was using the optical viewfinder on the top of the camera. I had the camera set to auto, and then I was just shooting away trying to do some sneaky from the hip shots, and I just couldn't understand why the camera kept freezing up and not actually taking the pictures. It kept saying like noise reduction, blah blah blah, and I was like, this like M240 is so old, it's just buffering so much. The red light kept flashing on the back of the camera and I just couldn't understand what was going wrong. I was kind of cursing the old M240 and thinking I needed an M10, and then I realised that the lens cap was still on. So because the camera was set to auto and it was trying to compensate for a completely black picture, that's why the red light was flashing. Okay, next onto the lens spec of the Leica Elmarit-M 2.8 spherical. This lens was kindly loaned to me by Peter Coulson while we're out in Poland. So this isn't my lens, but I got to play with it for a couple of days. As you can see, it's got a maximum aperture of 2.8 and it's got a close focus distance of 0.7 meters. Half stop aperture clicks. So that actually comes with two lens caps. I used the lens without the hood to make it smaller. It's still a reasonably big lens. It's a 55mm filter size, and so that's much bigger than the 21mm lenses I use. I'll mention those at the end of the video. Here you can see the clip-on lens hood design. Now sadly this lens was discontinued back in 2011, but there are plenty on eBay if you're tempted. What about the characteristics? So vignetting, wide open, there is some obvious vignetting being a wide angle lens. As you stop down it reduces, but it's still probably there to some extent, just to a lesser amount. All these photos that you're seeing are shot with the M240 currently. Here's a sharpness test, so keep an eye on the corners, you'll see the vignetting reduce and also the sharpness increase continuously as you stop down at the edges. I then wanted to test the sharpness on a SL, because some people say sharpness is better on a M camera, so you make up your own mind. Those are shot with the SL mirrorless. And then these photos are colour raw photos to give you an idea of the colours. All the photos previously shared are with my Mr. Leica black and white preset applied. So as you can see, normalish colours, but just keep an eye on the edges. So these are shot in the M240, and if you look carefully, there's a bit of a purple pinky fringing on some of the photos, and that's very similar to what I've noticed with other wide angle 21mm lenses. I kind of expected the Leica lens not to have this problem, but yes, it is there to some extent. You might be able to reduce it in Lightroom. Lens flare, there is slight lens flare if you're pointing directly at the sun, but it's nothing terrible, and for normal use you're not really going to have any problems. Sun stars, you can get some nice sun stars. I think with the wide angle lenses it's good to have sun stars as an option. They're not the best sun stars I've ever seen, but they're not terrible either. These last few photos were with a colour preset applied, that's why they've got a bit more pop. So what is the final verdict? Again, thanks to Peter Coulson for letting me try it. It's a nice 21mm lens for like an M mount, but I wouldn't say it's anything special. Alternatives that come to mind: if you want something smaller, check out the Colour Scopar 21f4. If you want something as good or maybe better, check out the Zeiss Bygone 21 2.8. Thanks to my awesome patrons, and click here to watch more 21mm lens reviews.